Hello and welcome to While You're at the Library. We know that this is your favorite library show where the librarians sit around and talk about books. So welcome to our parlor. We're glad to have you come and join us today. I'm Catherine Poulter, I'm the children's librarian, and we have a guest today. This is Melissa Nielsen, sorry.
It's okay.
Melissa Nielsen. She is one of the few rare wonderful school librarians.
Yes.
And we'll have a chance to hear a lot from you in a minute. And then Kathann Hendricks, our young adult librarian. Becky Hadley, the lead circulation librarian. And Trent
Clegg,
sorry, who also is a wonderful librarian in the reference.
Here?
Thank you.
That might be why. No, we'll just blame it on that.
Anyway, Trent, why don't you start us off and tell us about some of the books that you've brought?
Oh, goodness.
Names either,
Okay. Well, right out of the gates, I would like to introduce a book called That We May Be One by a man named Tom Christofferson. The subtitle is A Gay Mormon's Perspective on Faith and Family.
Wow.
This it's not a thick book, but this book is
Pithy?
full of marvelous insights. This is an issue that is currently much debated, in our community, in the LDS community. It's quite an issue. And he is the brother of the Apostle Todd Christofferson.
Oh, okay, J. Todd.
Yes, he is the Apostle's brother. And he, in the first half of the book, describes his experience growing up with his family, and then his decision to be authentic with what he was feeling and give voice to what he was feeling and to explore through living some of the things that he was feeling. And then he ended up going back to the LDS Church after leaving it. And so he describes his journey. And then in the second half of the book, he uses scriptural insights and quotes from other church leaders to talk about how the LDS community can move forward in
embracing
and bridging these divides that have come up in the community. I found it to be a very hopeful book. I found it to be an excellent book. Definitely a lot of food for thought in this book. It's not a long read, but it might take a while if you want to take some time with the text.
To process it.
I ended up buying a copy for myself so that I could go back and make notes. But I wouldn't advise doing that with the library copy. So, come sample the library copy, and if you like it, buy one of your own and make notes in that one. But yes, we have a copy of this at the library, and if it's not in, please put it on hold. But we look forward to seeing what people think.
Great. Is that on hold for anyone right now?
I think someone has it checked out right now. This is actually my personal copy.
Oh, your personal copy.
I wanted to talk about it, but the book was checked out.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to read that. So, good. Becky.
I would like to start by talking about some programs we have at the library.
Okay.
So every year we do a winter reading program, which we are doing for the children and the teens, which is a bingo, and you just try to get your 5 in a row by doing different things in the bingo line. For example, read a nonfiction book, read a book while wearing a scarf, read a book with animal characters, return your books on time. Once you get 5 in a row, you can come in and we've got a prize.
Now, a family just came in after about a week and they all had blackouts.
Yes, they got their prize.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
If I'm thinking of the same family.
Yes,
so
they were stapled together on your desk.
Yes. Okay. So this is for children and teens. Normally we have also bingo cards for adults. But we decided to do something a little bit different this year, which is called the 50-50 Book Quest. And this is a year-long challenge. It's not just until March. You've got 50 weeks to read 50 books, and there's a whole bunch of different categories here. And once again, just like on the bingo card, there's fun ones. A book with magic, a book with music in it, a book written in first person, a Christmas or holiday book, a graphic novel, a book found on the bottom shelf, a book with a verb in the title, a book with an ugly cover. You keep track on this reading log, or you can even use your own notebook as long as you're using the same categories. Jot down the title and then a sentence you can remember how it fits that category if it's not obvious. Because by December 31st, if you bring this in, we're going to put in an order for t-shirts.
So no matter, it's not a drawing, it's everybody gets one.
Everybody who completes it gets a t-shirt. And we'll place that order the 1st of January, well, that first week, once people have brought this in. So you've got all year to work on that. So I thought today I'd show you a few books that we've talked about on the TV show before and how they'd fit into some different categories. So my first book is The Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend. And we've talked about this one before, just to refresh your memory. It's about 2 pen pals, one from Sweden, one from Iowa. The girl from Sweden comes, she arrives on the day of the other lady's funeral. However, she's inherited the lady's house and all of her books, which that's what they mostly pen palled about, was the books that they loved. Well, Broken Wheel is the name of the town, and most of them are non-readers, and this is how she gets them to become readers. So this book could fall under the categories of translated from another language, because it was originally written in Swedish, and first book of the author. So this is her first book. So a couple more to go through, just to kind of give you an idea of how easy it is to fill in these categories. So we're familiar with All the Light We Cannot See.
An Idaho author.
That is the category. So this one fits a lot of categories. An Idaho author, book set in the past, a book you love, read it again. That's what it's going for mine again. And an award winner. So
Pulitzer Prize.
Yep, Pulitzer Prize.
Each book that you read can only fit into one category.
One category. Okay. Yep, one book per category. Yeah. I've written mine in pencil in case I need to move it. Because like I said, this one fits into 5 categories. So
I'll probably do it, after I've figured out whether I can read 50 books on me while I'm just filling in the teen bingo.
Right?
Look, I read that many.
I think I talked about this one last time, A Talent for Murder. This is the one where Agatha Christie, the 10 days that nobody knows what happened to her, she has been blackmailed to commit the perfect murder. So this book could fall under a book with a death in it, or a book that has a mystery. This one, A Girl from the Train. This is the World War II story about a girl who survives the train crash as she's on her way to a camp. So this one could fall under military in it. This is also translated from another language. If I remember right, the author is African.
Afrikaans,
yeah. So, okay, one more. Then I'll let Kath Ann have a turn.
Oh no, you're fine.
So,
those little dog biscuits.
my sticky notes that have my notes. The Night Circus. So this one, it's been a while since I've talked about it, but there's 2 wizards. They come together, make a circus. It's a battle of who has the strongest magic. However, they fall in love, which is a bummer because whoever loses is going to be dead. So that's a little twist in there. So this book could fall under a book that has magic in it, or once again, an author's first book. Because this was Erin Morgenstern's first book. So
that was a good one too.
Yeah, this is a good one. So
most of them.
So sign up for the 50/50 Book Quest is right now.
Great.
We don't have a cutoff date, but you can count anything towards these 50 categories as long as you have read it in 2018.
Maybe there's hope.
Very
for me.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I read children's books? Does that count?
Picture books do not count.
Even if I read it? Oh, if I read it to somebody else? Is there one in that, is there that category? No?
I do not have a read it to someone
that's
else.
The teen category. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You can do it, Kath Ann.
I have told other people who have asked it needs to contain chapters. So take that as you will.
Henry and Mudge has chapters in it.
It does.
If you can sleep,
you can be encouraged to read it whatever your normal level is.
Is there a graphic novel in there? There's graphic novels.
Depending on the day, maybe your level is, third grade versus 12th grade. It doesn't matter.
So tell us about some of the books that you've chosen.
Well, I really, 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 really wanted to share this book that just doesn't happen to be in right now.
Is it a chapter book?
Find it.
It is a chapter book.
A chapter book. Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu. I don't know how you say it. Mathieu. I somebody at work read this and said she's been telling all the girls that she knows, you've got to read this, you've got to read this, and so I had to read it too. So this is about a girl, starts out in a small town in Texas in her high school, and she lives with her mother. Her name is Vivian, and her mother grew up in this town, and her father dies, and her mother brings her daughter back to town to raise her so that she can live next to her parents, and has her help her raise her daughter. Well, Vivian is fed up because the administration at her high school thinks the football team can do no wrong. All the money goes to the football team. The science labs are lacking in new equipment. The other sports teams, the other girls like soccer and things like that, have no money for uniforms. And besides that, they have sexist dress codes. The girls are always picked on, for wearing something that might be too revealing, even if it isn't. And the boys are gross.
Terrible.
And they harass girls incessantly, and it's really disgusting. They get to wear T-shirts to school, and they never get called out on them that are,
that have bad slogans.
That have terrible things said on them. Well, Viv's mom was a punk rock riot girl, GRRRL, in the 1990s. And she's, now a nurse, and she's, much calmer and everything. But Viv starts looking through some of her mother's old things, and she decides to create her own zine. I never know if it's pronounced zine or zine, but it's just sort of a kind of a magazine, but it's cartoon drawn and things like that. And she starts out the first one with, and I can't read it very well, but I'll show a picture of it here in a second. And she posts this all over school. Nobody knows that she's doing this. She goes, "Hey ladies, are you tired of certain goings on among students telling you to make me a sandwich?" This is what one of the boys, the football players, does. He's the son of the principal. He's in class. One of the new girls stands up to answer a question, and he coughs and says, "Make me a sandwich," as in girls belong in the kitchen. And you can't make voice an opinion without being teased for it. Are you tired of the football team getting all of the attention and getting away with anything they want? Are you tired of the gross comments and disgusting T-shirts? The girls of Moxie are tired too. And on the other side of this page, it says, on this date, I want everybody that agrees with this should come to school with a star or a heart drawn on their hand. And it's kind of cool. The picture that they show is this girl, fairly old-fashioned hairstyle there, and is probably, I don't know where she got it from. She says, "What would East Rockport High look like if Moxie was in charge?" So it goes on like this, and a few girls do it, and others are kind of thinking about it, and they're kind of, embarrassed to do anything. Well, it continues, and it becomes something, nobody knows who's doing this, and she doesn't want to fess up to it. Other girls pick up the banner here, and they start creating a few things, and they say, "Hey, on this day, wear your bathrobe to school to show that, you're covering up so that nobody can harass you for what you're wearing." And at one point, they get told if anything else happens, that they'll be expelled from school and they'll lose their chance at getting a scholarship or going to college. So it's interesting to see how the girls band together, and you're rooting for them the whole way, and it's a really fun story. It's easy to read, and I think it's important. I think girls need to stand up for themselves and not put up with poor behavior from other students, whether they're boys or girls. A lot can be said about this. It's a great book for discussion, and I'll talk about another book after we go around again that is also very interesting about girls.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Melissa.
Oh, well, I'm here because I'm on the Visiting Authors Committee, and in March, our author is coming to 3 elementary schools in Pocatello, and also they are doing 2
Three
public appearances. I always forget. And then
Yes.
so one on Monday at Marshall Public Library, and Tuesday is later in the afternoon. Later in the evening at 7 at ISU, and then another one on Wednesday at 4.
So that's March 5th, 6th, and 7th?
Yes, I
Okay.
forgot to say that.
That's
Sorry,
fine.
March 5th, 6th,
And the
and
third
7th.
one's at Portneuf.
And the third one's at Portneuf at 4. So it's all kind of different areas.
And free and open to the
free and
public.
open to the public. I'm really excited about this because she, her name is Kashmira Sheth. And she is actually from India, and she grew up in a small village in India and also lived in Mumbai. So she kind of has all different experiences. And then she moved to Iowa, and then to go to school. And in it, they asked her like why she moved to Iowa, and she said because her uncle was a professor there. And so she went there, and she actually studied to be a microbiologist, and then later on started writing. So I kind of like her little story there. This is she's written on her website. It says picture books, and then books for young children, for older children, and then it says older readers. And this is one of her books that she says for older readers. But I would say probably about 12 and up.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. What do you
Maybe
think?
11 and up.
Okay, 11, maybe 10. But this one's called The Keeping Corner, and the best part about these books is that if you go on her website, she has, for some of them, not all of her books, but she will tell you how to pronounce their main characters' names. And I really, really liked that part, and that's where I tried to learn how to pronounce her name. But in The Keeping Corner, this is about a girl that was married at 9, or is this
Kind of. She was engaged when she was young.
okay? Perfect. So I have not read this book.
I did
I've only
read it.
read the summary. So but her husband ends up dying.
Before they get married.
Before they get married, her husband, her fiance, ends up dying.
And so she has to.
Mourn him for a year.
Just 1 year.
And then after that, she's a widow.
She's a widow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do they
yeah,
allow widows to remarry?
Not traditionally.
Not traditionally.
yeah. So it's very interesting. It's an interesting concept, I think, for us. It's where the multicultural comes into play.
One thing I liked about this was that the girl was just a regular, happy-go-lucky, sweet, charming girl, and then when this tragedy befell her, she had to stay in the house, quiet and silent, and she turned to the world of books and learning, and that gave her a way to escape.
Yeah, because I read that
That was really beautiful.
They broke with the tradition a little bit and were able to get her a tutor so that she could at least do something in the house because she had to stay.
How old
Yeah.
was she then?
About 12.
12. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So-
My book, what I have to talk about after.
Oh, good.
Works
good.
Will be
But
a little
well written,
similar.
and I found that I read at the end that was a biography of one of Kashmira Sheth's aunts.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, so interesting. Oh, it didn't say that on the website. But thank you for
Yes.
sharing. Yeah, so we're really excited for her to come, and she has a few also picture books that
Really
are beautiful.
fun picture books.
That are fun and
Tiger in my soup.
yes.
Rawr.
Yeah, so that was excellent.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no
And we'll
problem.
come around and we'll talk about something else.
Okay, sure.
I just really quickly wanted to share that we have some new books at the library. These are part of an ongoing collection that we're building of a long series. You can see a very long series called The Scientists in the Field. This is one of the newest books of those in this series, and this is about a new island that appeared off the coast of Iceland. It's a volcanic island, and when it appeared in 1963, of course it was just hot lava, and over time little plants have come, and only scientists are allowed on the island. only research. No tourists, no visiting fishermen can get out and tromp through the fragile soil, but they're tracking how an island comes to be filled with life. Because now, as you see, there's greenery and there's bird life, and it's not very big. It's about the size of Central Park, which is it's about a mile square, except it's round. But there's all sorts of bugs, and you can see grasses here. There's bird life. Here's a picture of some of that rugged terrain. And of course, at the beginning, it was starting to erode away, but then the little plants took hold and they're able to find some, hold on to some of the lava. And it's really quite beautiful. And this tells the story of a man who, when he was a little boy in Iceland, looked out of his window and he saw the billowing clouds of volcanic ash coming from the creation of this little island. And then it always was in his mind, and he grew up to become one of those scientists who worked on this island. So this is called Life on Surtsey, and it's only one of about 40 books in the Scientists in the Field series, and we have most of them, and they're all beautiful and illustrated and all sorts of things like Project Seahorse, or Mission to Pluto, or The Octopus Scientists, or The Quest for the Tree Kangaroo. All of these are interesting, and we have them. So if you're interested in science, these are great stories, and they're very well written and give a great insight into what it really means to be a scientist. So I like them. Come and check them out. Trent, we're back to you.
Well, I was just curious, what is a tree kangaroo?
I know.
It's a kangaroo that lives in a tree, and there is such thing.
It almost sounds like a fake news thing.
But there is such thing. You'll have to check the book out.
I will have to check
It's
that. I lived in
real.
Australia for 2 years and never heard of a tree kangaroo. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's so
Maybe
cool.
they don't live in Australia.
They do only
Do
kangaroos
they?
only live in
tree kangaroos? I never heard of them either. when I was
kangaroos
there.
only live in Australia.
Because kangaroos are marsupials, and marsupials
Right.
are only in
Evolved
Australia.
on that island. Yes.
Okay, well, couple of things this go around. We have a new handbook for depression glass.
Oh, cool.
So if you are a collector of depression glass or would like to become a collector, or if you inherited some pieces from a relative and you'd like to know, what they're currently worth in general on the market, this is a lovely illustrated guide to the various types
Wow.
and patterns, the pieces that are available in those patterns and in those colors. It's a lovely history. And if you don't know anything about depression glass, I would say come check this book out and find out about depression glass. Every year at the State Fair, they have a whole booth where people
Filled with
display their collections of depression glass, and it's lovely, and it's a part of our country's history.
Yeah.
Also, we have How to Instant Pot. The last year, the Instant Pot has become a big,
So popular.
yes, a big culinary phenomenon.
Is it like a crock pot?
It is a pressure cooker that can also function as a crock pot, that can function as a vegetable steamer. It's pretty much a
Do it all.
do-it-all type of food cooker, and it can cook things very, very quickly. And so, of course, this makes it a lot easier for those people who don't have a lot of time to prepare meals. But we have this book, and we've also ordered 2 or 3 other books with recipes and how-tos for the Instant Pot. So if you would like to become an Instant Pot food preparer, we have all kinds of helps for you.
Great.
She wants to look through it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I think I
Well, there we go.
I think I used it, and then I didn't know what else to do with it.
I think
so
that's what it's kind
I
of one
think
of
I need
those
the
tools
book,
where
so you
people get
know.
them and they're like,
it's like it just
know.
yeah.
so that
Yeah.
would be great.
I'll take it home and check that out.
Well, a couple of the
I'll
books
check
that we
that out
got,
and then take it home.
they focus on specific types of cuisine. One was like, how to Indian hot pot, so cooking all kinds of Indian food in the hot pot. And I imagine we will be adding more of those to our collection.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would use that. Well, I guess you could use that in
So used
Becky's
to
category
slow
as a
cooker.
book with a verb in the title.
Well, surely there's something about books about food or books with food.
Yeah.
There has to be a
Or
category.
cookbook or something.
Good, thank you.
We'll find one.
We'll find a category. Book that makes you
right.
hungry.
Becky.
So I needed a book I could read in a day for my lovely category. So this is one I picked up off the new shelf. It's called The Deal of a Lifetime by Frederick Backman. You might recognize that author's name from A Man Called Ove, or Ove,
Ove.
however you want to say that.
Yeah.
OVE. This is a quick little story, like 50 pages
Does it have chapters
long.
in it?
It does. It does have chapters, and it's off the adult fiction new bookshelf.
I'll just read it now.
Anyways, it's technically a Christmas book also, but I think you can read it any time of year. It just happens to take place on Christmas Eve. So there is a father who is a cancer patient, and he has made friends with a little girl that's also in the cancer ward, and they keep seeing this lady in a gray sweater carrying her clipboard around, and they have realized that this lady is death, or that is her job. And the man is very protective of this little girl for some reason. They've had a connection, and he wants to keep the lady with the folder away from her as long as possible, especially the Christmas season. And he decides to strike a deal with this lady with the clipboard that to take him instead of her. And she tells him, well, that's not as easy as it sounds, because you can't just switch
One soul for another?
Yeah. You have to completely give up your whole life. And so then he's reflecting back on his child, his son, and the horrible father he has been, because he concentrated more on his career than he did on his family. And so it's the letter that he is writing to his son of, you won't know who I am because I have decided to trade my life for this young girl's life. And it is really touching, and it really makes you stop and think about a few things, if you'd be willing to do that. Because we always say, yeah, I'd do anything for so-and-so, but would you not exist at all in order to let them live?
Would
Don't
his
answer
son
that.
ever have been born, though?
The
tricky
way
part.
Death put it is things will still happen. So he's like really high up in his career, and he's like, well, what about this business I've made? And she said, well, if you didn't do it, somebody else would. If your son wasn't born from you, he'd be born from someone else. So very interesting take, something to stop and think about. So it's The Deal of a Lifetime. It's currently on the new bookshelf.
To be blunked out of existence.
Yeah, but who knows where they go to?
Except maybe
Except for, well, never mind. We won't.
No, don't go
We
there.
aren't going there. We won't
Okay.
go there. So
So another twist on something off the new bookshelf. This is not something I would normally have picked up, but I needed a ghost story. So Kelly Armstrong, I read some of her young adult, but I have never dared read her adult because it gets very risque. We'll just put it that way. So this one is called Lost Souls, and it sounded like it would be okay. There was a few pages I had to skip, I will say that. So this is about a man who is a lawyer, and he takes on strange cases. And there's an urban legend of a hitchhiker. And this
Does she vanish?
she does. So we're all familiar with the story. Beautiful, lovely girl dressed in white on the side of the road, and somebody picks her up, and she has him drive around, usually ends at the cemetery, and then poof, she's gone. Okay? The problem is it started up again, and 48 hours after, the drivers commit suicide. So he's trying to figure out what is really going on. And because it's Kelly Armstrong, there is a little bit of magic, supernatural, fairies, pixies, ghosts,
probably, yep.
a little bit of everything in there. And they're going to solve the mystery of what is happening to these drivers. What is driving them to commit suicide? And he's trying to solve the mystery within the 48-hour period.
Does
because
he pick up the hitchhiker?
I'm not going to answer that question.
It would ruin the whole book.
But probably not.
This businessman has picked up the hitchhiker and even called the police about it, and then everyone's laughing at him. Why did you report this ghost story to the police? You're so crazy. Well, it gets this guy's attention, and hopefully they solve it before the 48 hours. So, once again, off the new shelf by Armstrong, Lost Souls.
She's giving me ideas how I could actually complete the 50 books.
Good.
Ghost story.
Thank you. K.A.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up this book called Girl Rising. This is a brand new nonfiction book that we've picked up called Girls Rising, Changing the World One Girl at a Time by Tanya Lee Stone. And there was a movie called Girl Rising, and this is how this began. So it's why and how the film became a book. In 2013, April 2013, she saw the film Girl Rising, and that introduces 9 powerful girls, and here you hear their inspiring stories, such as girls that escaped situations that keep millions of girls from getting an education worldwide. And she thought, there were a lot of people that were interviewed that didn't get to be in the movie, and she thought, wait a minute, maybe I can do something, in a book format that will tell their stories as well. And that's how she got started on this book. It has, the chapters are the stakes, as in what it takes to get an education, the stories, talks about modern day slavery, child marriage, and the solutions. And what I thought was really striking was, we probably don't even realize how hard it is for some girls to get an education. It said, things that cause lack of education are money and war, natural disaster, things that just go on, but it happens in the United States just as much, maybe not as much, but it does happen here too. But it says, when it comes to education, one fact affects us all worldwide. Over 62 million girls are not in school. And then there's an asterisk, and down in the really tiny print it says, while the majority of data points to 62 million, these numbers are extremely difficult to measure. And in 2016, UNESCO reported that the number may be as high as 130 million. That is, insane. One of the stories that I did read through, it tells all sorts of stories in here, was about a girl who was in the film, but they chose to have somebody represent her because she did not want anybody to find out that she was talking about this. She lives in Afghanistan. She was forced to marry, and they call her Amina.
So that's not really photos.
This is not really her. They had an actress to protect her identity. When Amina was born, her mother learned that she was a girl. Her mother cried. A girl was of no use to her. A girl was a burden. Father was a proud but poor farmer, barely making enough to feed his family. And so when she came of age, which was less than 16, they arranged a marriage for her. And they did film her, but she insisted on being filmed in complete cover because she does not want anybody to know who she was. She was married off to one of her cousins, and let's see, how old was she? She was 14. And her father was paid $250,000 Afghanis, which is roughly $5,000. And so basically, he bought a car and, made their lives better. He sold her for their family. And she's lived with her in-laws for a while because he leaves to go work in Iran. But she's now able to get some education again, but she's hoping someday that she'll find somebody that she can love. But it's just heartbreaking to think that, all that has been taken away from her. She was starting to get an education. Another girl was told She was from an Ethiopian village. Her name is Melka, and she didn't know what was going on until one day her mother said, hurry, all these people are arriving at their home and all these things are being set up, and her mother says, put this dress on, you're getting married today. And she was, how old was she? I know she was also 14. And then next thing she knew, she tried to run away and they beat her, and she was standing by some man that she had never met before in her life. And she fought it, and she kept trying to run away, and she was beaten so badly that she ended up in the hospital for 30 days. Wow. But they ended up putting that man and her parents both in jail for a while. But now she's gone back to her home, but now she'll speak out for herself. So that's a positive for her now, but the things that some of these girls have had to endure just to get an education, or I've forgotten where I read about it, but it was talking about the problems of not getting an education and how that, that was important to me. Sorry, I wanted to find this one little section.
So this is from all over the world.
Yes, okay. So when you educate a girl, she is likely to marry and have children at a later time. And the good thing about that, she will be able to get a better job, and her children will more likely live. Because if a baby of a mother that is under 18 has a 60% greater risk of dying before his or her first birthday. And if they're over 18, there's fewer infant deaths. Women live longer, and 1 extra year of primary school will increase a girl's future earnings by 10 to 20%. And just things that all this ripple effect of what happens when you don't get an education. So I thought this was a really, really interesting book, following, girls and taking Moxie, and then there's one other one here that buried, I don't know. Any rate, if you read anything about Malala, this is the same type of thing. So at any rate,
great, thank you.
That was a really good book.
That's really interesting.
So I brought a lot of books, but I'm going to share this one because it's just goofy and I love it. I have not read them completely, but this book is called William Shakespeare's The Empire Striketh Back. By Ian Dougherty. I may be pronouncing that wrong. But what it really is it's the Star Wars series. Like it has the first trilogy, and then it has, I don't think it has the new ones, but it has the others, the first 3, and so 1 through 6. And they're written in as if they were a Shakespearean play.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it's amazing how well they fit. I just want to share this one small part. Okay. Because it said, Master, so you have to guess who's saying this, if you how great you are at this. But it says, Master, moving the stones with the great force, I do admit may be achieved, but this, the ship, to lift its hulk, its mass, its size, 'tis different, wholly different.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker. And the best part is that Yoda sounds just like right on, like you don't even have to struggle to understand him. And it says, nay, no different. Within thy mind, Luke, different it is. Only within thy mind, Luke, different it is. And so I just love it because you know exactly where in the movie it's talking about. And it fits it beautifully. So one of the teachers at Highland had me purchase these books, and it's just great. They're just great and fun. So if you love William Shakespeare, and if you love Star Wars, or one of the other one, I find that this would be a great series of books to read.
Oh, good. Share another one, too.
Share another one? Okay. Which one? Okay, I'm going to share this one, because if I don't, my student aide she'll be so mad at me. This one is called Far From the Tree, and it says that it's a National Book Award finalist, but I'm pretty sure this is the book that won.
Nice.
And I have not read it. It is by Robin Benway. And it is, I have heard her talk about it. And she said that as she was writing this book, that it was so hard to write, but these characters their stories needed to be told. And it's about 3 siblings, but they don't really know that they're siblings. The first one is put up for adoption. And then the second one, their brother is, he is put into the foster care system and is almost ready to graduate from it. And then there's a younger sister who's also adopted, but she's adopted by a fairly rich family. And so it's just kind of talking from their 3 different perspectives.
Do they meet each other?
Excuse me. Yes, they do meet each other, and they meet each other, and it's kind of about them coming together after not knowing each other. The oldest one, she starts the journey, and one of the reasons why she starts the journey is because she also has a child as a young woman, and then gives the baby up for adoption. So that starts her looking for her birth mom, and excuse me, and looking for her birth mom, she finds her 2 siblings, and then they go looking, and they're kind of their journey and how they each kind of have a story, but they're a little unsure how to share it. And my student aide loved it so much, she read it twice in one night and cried both times. And then she insisted that my clerk read it, and so my clerk read it, and she goes, I also cried. I'm not a crier. I am a crier, and I don't like to read books that make me cry because it's so sad. So I've been putting it off reading this, but I'll probably read it before she graduates in May. So this one is also spectacular. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Good, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll quickly share that I have one book called Mrs. Piggle Wiggle. I love Mrs. Piggle Wiggle. She's one of my favorites.
Me too.
Anne Martin. Well, Mrs. Piggle Wiggle, Betty McDonald died many years ago. But carrying the torch is Anne Martin, who wrote Missy Piggle Wiggle. And they're very similar. I love and honor and prefer Mrs. Piggle Wiggle, but it's nice to hear that her niece, Missy Piggle Wiggle, has come to live in the Upside Down house while Mrs. Piggle Wiggle's off searching for her husband, who's the Pirate King. So beautiful. I grew up with Mrs. Piggle Wiggle, and in our family we still, if someone says, please pass the butter in our family, in the Thought You Setters cure, when they said, please pass the butter, someone said, oh, I thought you said he's Pa's brother. And someone else said, fleas, gasp, and mutter. So we have those as ongoing family jokes. But anyway, any fan of Mrs. Piggle Wiggle, whom I love, can now read Missy Piggle Wiggle and find some enjoyment in that as well.
And the Won't Walk the Dog Cure?
Yeah, the Won't Walk the Dog Cure. Yeah. You know, the children say, oh, please, 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 Mom, get us a dog. We want a dog. We'll do everything for it. And after a few weeks, then the mom is doing everything.
Yeah,
so,
and the kids not doing it.
Yeah, so good stories and nicely written. All right. Trent.
Those books used to make me laugh so hard when I was a kid. I loved them.
I'm so glad. Yeah.
All right. The last 2 books that I've got to share. I have a book called This Is Just My Face, Try Not to Stare by Gaburi Sidibe, I think is how you say her name. In 2009, she was in a film called Precious. I don't know if you've seen the film Precious. I haven't seen it.
Is it about Ramotsoi?
No.
Oh.
No.
It's more, I think it's also a book.
It's
Precious
a book.
is a book.
Precious was based on a book, not called Precious. I can't remember, but it's based on a book.
It's a banned book. I don't know.
Yeah, like a one word in the title, and I try to think what it is. It doesn't say anything in the back,
Well,
does it?
you know, the film was about a girl in the late 80s who was facing really adverse circumstances. I believe her stepfather impregnated her.
Oh, Push.
Terrible.
Push, that's what it's called. She was having lots of trouble in school, obviously, and ultimately, apparently, from what I understand, it's a very hopeful film, but this girl has to surmount some pretty incredible odds in order for her to find some hope and climb out of this life that she's in. And this gal was the star and was nominated for a lot of awards for her role in it. She has since gone on to be in FX's American Horror Story, Coven. She's played Denise in Difficult People. She's currently playing Becky on Fox's show Empire, and this is her first book. But her life had a lot of similar experiences to the character that she played in Precious. Some very difficult circumstances, and this book reflects her very unique voice and has gotten fantastic reviews. We not only bought a print copy, but we bought an audio copy so that people could also listen to the book. But I really look forward to seeing this book never being in the library because people are enjoying it so much. She seems to be a delightful person, and I'm going to go and find Precious and I'm going to watch it because I need to see this movie after finding out about this book. I also have a book called A Body of Work by David Hallberg. The subtitle is Dancing to the Edge and Back. Mr. Hallberg, he is the first American to be a principal dancer at the Bolshoi Ballet in Russia. He has also danced with the American Ballet Theater. He's been a principal dancer with them. He has danced with the Ballet of the Paris Opera. But he had very much a Billy Elliot experience as a young person and had to surmount some pretty significant bullying. He reflects a lot on what it means to be a dancer, to the dedication, the struggle. This is very much the memoir of a dancer. But given the strong ballet culture that we have here in Pocatello with Sergei and Beth, I would imagine that there would actually be quite a few people who would find Mr. Hallberg's experiences valuable. And even for those of us who aren't ballet dancers, I think the stories of people surmounting struggle and adversity are good. Apparently, he suffered an injury that pretty much ended his career for a long time. He had to reevaluate who he was as a person, figure out what was still important to him and how he could continue being himself. But it's so fascinating book, and I'm sure that this is something that a lot of people will enjoy reading.
Great, thank you very much. Becky, you have another book.
I do have another book. This one just has a really fun title. Murder, Magic, and What We Wore. This is by Kelly Jones. This is a young adult book. So this takes place in the early 1800s. And this young girl has discovered that her father is a spy because she followed him one day. And the opening of this book is they have found out that he has been murdered. And so they bring his belongings to them, and they're a very well-to-do family, but there's just her and her aunt. And they're not sure how they're going to make ends meet until his money from his accounts come in. And as they're going through his belongings, she sees some handkerchiefs that she had embroidered for him, and they looked a little off, and so she was piling them in a stack, and she realized as she stacked them she could see a secret message that he had put in there. And so she takes it upon herself to go to the War Office and share what this message is, and she wants to become a spy herself. And of course she's a girl, nobody will listen to her. And then they find out that all of his accounts have been drained. There's no money. And so her and her aunt have to do something to make a living. And she's just dreadful. She does not want to become a governess because that is like the bottom of the line. It's not what she wants to do. And she's really upset, and they need to go buy the black mourning clothes. And she's repairing her scarf that had gotten a hole in it, and as she has all these emotions and thoughts, suddenly the fabric turns black. And she realizes that she can sew glamours.
She's magic.
She is magic. So she can sew what they call glamours into things. And so she goes kind of like undercover, as this French mademoiselle that will sew ball gowns for the masquerade that's coming up, because she can quickly take a regular dress and fix it and adjust it and sew these glamours in. It's still an all-day project, but an all-day instead of a week worth, and put in these glamours. And as she gets better, she can actually make your disguise so well that you actually look like someone else. Meanwhile, her aunt just spends all this time writing letters, and it's really making her upset until she realizes who she's writing the letters to, which I won't give that away. But her and the aunt are trying to solve who killed the father.
And where did all the money go?
And where did all the money go? And she really bad wants to become a spy, following Dad's footprints. And when she has these glamours, you don't think anybody would turn her down, but they do. That's also in here. So this is just a fun read. It reads really fast, and I could very easily see it turning into a series, although it wrapped itself up. A lot of young adult books do end up going into trilogies.
Series.
Yeah. So this one was fun. Murder, Magic, and What We Wore.
That's great. Thank you.
What category did it fill for you?
For me, I haven't written it down yet, but it's either going to be a book that contains magic or a verb in the title.
Oh, very good. Okay, Kath-Ann.
Okay, so now I realize what I forgot to talk about. This one is a graphic novel, Persepolis, by Marjane Satrapi. And the first one you see here is the complete book, and then these are the part 1, part 2. And we have both of them. We have all of this in our library.
I also have Persepolis.
Right. In your library?
In my library.
Oh,
yes.
good. Okay. So Persepolis is the story of this person's childhood in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. And it talks, oh my gosh, there's a lot in there. I mean, totally, there's all this stuff about history that I didn't know. I vaguely remember parts of. But there was a lot of contradiction between their public life and their private life. Her parents were against the regime, the revolution that was coming in. Nobody seemed to like Saddam Hussein, but who took over after him, brought a lot of, what do I want to say? Well, you can see that in this first picture she has a headscarf on, and that's when she's a little bit older. So it changed a lot about what women's freedoms were, and when she's I think about 12 or 14, she's sent away to Vienna to go to school because her parents feel like things are getting too violent where they are. You never knew when somebody was going to be pulled out of their home for doing something that was against Islam, and so she felt like she just didn't belong where she was in Vienna. She never really fit in there, and then she came home and she didn't really feel like she fit in there. But it's all about her growing up and all the history that was going on at that time. And they say that she's one of the most highly regarded and singularly talented graphic artists at work today. Great. And she ended up finally living in France, I believe. But it's really interesting. It's has a little bit of humor in it because she tries to see the humor in things, but she's also quite a fighter and stands up for herself many times. Some of the men were required to wear beards, and the women had to cover their hair, and so some of them would let a little bit of their hair show, and they got called out for all sorts of things that weren't quote unquote appropriate. You wanted to cover your hair because you didn't want the shine of your hair to attract a man. They couldn't, so it was always put on the women, as it often is. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. We're reading it for my book group right now. And I think one last thing I'll share about is the book called The 57 Bus, and this is true. And this is in Oakland, California. And I don't remember the situation, but I'm trying to remember what year this occurred in. But it was about two teenagers. One was Sasha, who went to a private school in Oakland, and the other was Richard, who went to a large public school, and their paths crossed once a day on the bus for 8 minutes. Sasha was born male, but he identified as female, and he was wearing a dress, was wearing a skirt. And on that day, Richard kind of got sort of teased, not teased, but his friends said, "Oh, you should just light that dress on fire," you know. And he tried a couple times, didn't think it was really going to happen, and suddenly it did. And fortunately, some people helped Sasha out, and Sasha ended up in the hospital for a while. But it's a story told from, you know, what happened and how Sasha and her family chose to deal with this young man, Richard, who really, he didn't intend to hurt him. Okay, that's the hard part for me. They call Sasha not he or she, but they, I think is the terminology.
Plural pronouns.
Thank you. I have a hard time remembering what they were, but they do refer all the way through the story that way. The father doesn't blame Richard, and they want him to, you know, not have the harshest punishment possible. And as a result, they actually meet later on and, you know, reconcile. And I don't know, it's just a really moving story. But I still can't remember what year this happened in and how did I miss this? But and it was very unusual because in Oakland, you know, there is a much more open community, and so you wouldn't expect people to be as discriminating as this man was. But very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting. Well, alas, our time is up. So we will meet again. Thank you for coming, and come and talk to us about what books you like. We'd love to hear that. That would be really wonderful. But in the meantime, come to the library, join the 50/50 challenge, and we will see you later. Goodbye.